I'm Kris Mikami. I brought a watercolor on silk painting of a tiger, and I believe it's a Korean tiger. My father-in-law, Charles Irabu, with his Suiko as his pen name, Mikami, painted it in Topaz concentration camp. Okay, he was born in Japan, just the turn of the century, in Hiroshima camp, and he wanted to be an artist. So he contacted his father and got permission to come to America to study art. He lived in Seattle until the war, and when the war came along, he was one of the first ones arrested, because he was basically a sort of a leader in the community. He acted as a baishakunin and did eulogies at funerals and that kind of thing. And so he was arrested by the FBI almost instantly. And Mrs. Mikami didn't know where he was. And they finally got message, the fact that he'd been arrested and was shipped to California. I think Pinedale originally, and then to Tule Lake. And Mrs. Mikami ended up bringing her two sons on the train to Pinedale and then Tule Lake. So they weren't part of the whole mass immigration from Bainbridge Island and the Japanese here in Seattle. He was separate. He had art training in Saijo, but I think a lot of it was self-training. That's one of the reasons why he wanted to come here, was to get some formal training. He did teach some art. I think most of the art teaching that I know he did was in Topaz, but I believe he did do some in Tule Lake. He was teaching watercolor. Even after he got old and retired, he was teaching watercolor. He'd go to those old folks' homes, and some of whom were much younger than him, and teach them and do demonstrations for them. He had done watercolor on fabrics, so that the women that were building dolls would have, clothing for the dolls. It's silk. Well, this is silk that this painting is on, so they must have had access somehow to it. Well, I know at Topaz, by the time the end of the war, people were much more lenient about going in and out and so on, because he said Tule Lake, my husband said there were guards with guns and barbed wire and everything all around the place, and Topaz was much more relaxed and less hostile. My husband was 5 when they left for the war, so they'd been married for several years before. She was the cousin of his first wife, so sort of an arranged kind of thing. My husband, who was about probably 6 or 7 at the time, saw him do the painting. Oh, he said he was just fascinated, and the fact that his father was doing it from memory, so he was remembered what this tiger looked like and was painting it. Now, he remembers very fondly of his father's artwork. Okay, well, my husband, it was given to him by his father, and I think partly because he'd seen it being painted and he'd always admired it, and so at one point he gave it to us. Well, it's always been in one of the main room, and right now it's in the foyer. As you walk in, the first thing you see is that painting, and then we have some straw little hanger that the Buddhist churches have over artwork and so on. So we have that. My husband picked that up in Japan, and we have that hanging over the painting.